James Cheng, our guest, he is an architect of great renown, studied at Harvard. Who did you study under at Harvard?
Richard Meyer and Jerzy Soltan. And Jerzy was the person that I used to work for Corbusier before he died. So
really?
It was fantastic, yes.
I bet. And what did you, better question, what didn't you learn there about what you do daily?
Oh, I would say I learned everything there. It's hard to imagine something I didn't learn.
Inspired by certainly Corbusier. I have a chair.
Yes.
But not a building.
Well, Harvard is sort of the, Corbu was God. So if you don't like Corbu, you can't go to school there. So I was a bit of an outsider when I first started, because from the West Coast, we like Frank Lloyd Wright, we like Richard Neutra, you know, the more natural lifestyle. Over there, everything's more formal, more theoretical, and so on.
Did you design something in Alaska, in the capital?
I helped my old firm win the competition, but it was never realized. It was, they were going to move the capital to Juneau.
Right.
So
is capital Fairbanks, Anchorage?
Yeah, but it was to Juneau, but it didn't happen.
It didn't happen because I read when you were a younger architect, you won the contract to design a capital in Alaska.
Well, I used to work for this firm in San Francisco. So after I worked for Arthur and Harvard, they asked me to go back to help them with a competition, which I did.
And as you remember Arthur fondly, I'm sure, now that he's gone, what lingers?
He's never gone.
He's never gone. No, that's true. When you build these buildings, you're never gone.
That's right.
You go into the courthouse for the right reasons. You enjoy that Arthur put that all together. Yeah. What did he tell you? That you're designing something, you're thinking something.
You see, Arthur is such a gentleman. He never tells you anything. He would only suggest and nudge you in the direction that he would like you to go. And what I learned from Arthur is he's always searching. Because we were working on the courthouse, the Robson Square. We were trying to do those famous strands. There was 4 of us working on them. And we worked for months, and we'd done hundreds of models. Nothing was right, you know. And then one day, Alberto did the final scheme. And then when we saw it, we said, that's it. And then when Arthur saw it, he just said, that's it, you know. So you learn the process that nothing is ever good enough, and you got to keep searching and searching. So
during Olympics, were you a little concerned when they talked about putting a roof on
No, that was exactly
what were they going to do?
Vision. When we were working on that project, he wanted to close Robson Street. He wanted that. And it was the government that did not let him, because there was a BC Tel trunk line that went through. So the Olympic was exactly the way Arthur visualized Robson Square to be used.
And are you weighing in on one side or the other of the new art gallery, no new art gallery, existing space? Do you have a idea?
I understand both sides, and I understand the limitation of where it is. I really believe that's the best location in the heart of the city, but I also understand the limitation for certain kind of art that it cannot display. And then to have people go down 6 stories underground will limit the effectiveness of the art gallery.
And of course, if they do build a new one, they will be looking for an architect. That too.
I hope they have a competition. I think it deserves the best Vancouver can get.
Sure. And how does that work? If they have a competition, you, James Cheng, Bing Tom, Peter Cardew, do you all submit your concept and then
it would be
the powers that be decide?
That's right. That's right. They will have a jury, and it will be an anonymous competition. So hopefully the best scheme will win.
How great. But you know, if Frank Gehry designed something, you wouldn't have to be an atomic scientist to say, you know, I think that's Frank Gehry's.
But that happened in Paris. That was an opera house that was awarded to a Canadian architect. They thought it was a Richard Meyer building, and they wanted a Richard Meyer building. So it can happen.
Sure. Sure it can. So let's go to some of your buildings here. Kings Landing, Concord Pacific. Tell me about that. False Creek. Well, it's a Vancouverist residential.
We've been very fortunate to work on north side of False Creek, you know, right from the beginning. So we see how it evolved. And oh yeah, you do have the pictures there. Yeah. So the most important thing is a people place. Again, we wanted to create a waterfront community, and this was the first major project to actually have a food store as an anchor, urban fare. And the locals loved it so much they call it urban affair.
Well, today on Valentine's Day, it'd be good to have an affair in the urban fair.
So to me, it's not the building. it is the places that you can create. And again, we talked about the spaces in between. So with the community center, the facilities of the bank, the restaurants, then a place starts to happen.
Sure.
And according to the locals, until we have urban fare, they don't feel like that's a neighborhood.
Well, and as you know, I think this is true. More families with children are living urban, saying, you know, we don't have to go to the burbs. We don't have to have a giant yard.
You're absolutely right, because that's what surprised the city. The city used to think that families would not live above 6 stories off the ground.
Sure.
But we actually found that families living at 33rd floor, you know, with the elevator nowadays, they don't care. The kids love it up there, and we have more family living downtown than we ever thought possible.
Well, it's so great to be able to walk to daycare, walk to
Everything.
walk to the theater, walk to the movie house, walk to the restaurants. How great is that?
It's sustainable. And also now we're finding a lot of people don't have cars downtown anymore. Parking spots are being changed into storage lockers. People are coming back to the city and say, hey, can you reduce the parking requirement because we don't need the car.
Sure, and you can get involved in a carpool if you do need the car to go
car co-op or whatever.
It all works. It's greener. It makes sense to me. What about safety?
Well, safety's in the numbers. When you have more people living downtown, it's actually way safer to walk. You know, so and also that's why we have the townhouses, the front doors, eyes on the street, because that was the biggest contribution Vancouver made in urban design recently, is to have high-density front doors combined with towers. That's what Vancouverism, some people call it, was all about.
Well, you've done that on Alberni, isn't it? Is it
It was 888 Beach. It was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah. And that became sort of a prototype, and the director of planning, Larry Beasley, at that time liked it so much, he bought a townhouse himself, and then he regulated, he put that sort of guidelines through the downtown.
Sure. Well, as you've worked with many city planners, you know how the changes are done.
Yes.
And there are planners I'm sure you relate to, and planners you don't.
Yes. I always say they're the most powerful people.
Well, very much so, and the long-term vision planner is who we want, obviously, so that we still have views and we have green space and we have a very livable city, as they say.
I like to ask them to leave the design to the architects. They can make sure the public benefits are looked after, the amenities, and so on.
Sure.
You know, the big vision.
How tall to you is too tall in this city?
Oh, I think we're about there. I think about 700 feet, 750 feet is about it, because we should never compete with the mountains. And what made Vancouver so great is that our towers are petite by international standards. And that's what gave us this fine-grained, walkable type of feeling. If we started doing monster buildings, then it won't be Vancouver anymore.
No, and it's the light factor, too.
Absolutely.
You know, some days in New York, when you're downtown in the financial district, it's dark, even though the sun's out.
Well, that's the other thing about Vancouverism, is slim towers spaced far apart.
So and lots of glass.
Lots of glass.
Balconies? Do people always want a balcony, pretty much?
Especially the smaller the unit, the more important the balcony is, because that's your relief.
As you walk, as a established architect, the Olympic Village, and you see that the grocers and the drugstores have not quite moved in there, and it's a bit lost. If that's it's also in receivership. Right. But what would you do?
Well, for me, the biggest disagreement I have with the Olympic Village is the courtyards. They were east-west oriented, so therefore they're always dark. They have no view out. If they were north-south oriented, the sun would get in there, and they would sell them a lot better. Okay, so is it possible to change? Not really.
No, they're there now. So short of putting in a sun lamp or something.
But Bob is going to sell them at a big discount, and I think that will work. Because now, from what I understand, he's now pricing them at the same price as Wall Center and all the other places.
But it's about rebranding and repricing and rethinking.
It's a beautiful project, but the only thing that I think we regretted is it didn't relate to the waterfront. I mean, that project could be anywhere in Vancouver. Sure. And it would be a very good project, you know. But what is lacking is the units that's actually oriented to the views. Because Vancouver people buy the view.
Yeah, very much so.
And at that layout, probably 75% of the units have no views.
Yeah, and color in our city, too.
Yes.
Color in the city. I know you put color in the towers.
Yes. It's actually more and more architects are doing it now, so it's nice to see.
You started that, did you?
Well, I can't
Well.
But if you go to cities like Brazil or India, there's color everywhere.
Okay, so you're speaking at BuildX Vancouver at the Vancouver Convention Center on February 24th. I think that's a Thursday.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Oh, nice to see you again.
Good to see you again. And we'll
Thank
see you
you.
in West Van.
Yes, you will.
On the
I'd love
waterfront.
to walk the beach with you and talk.
Yes,
Okay,
we'll do
let's
that.
do that.
Thank
That's
you.
a date.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James Cheng.